Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Just One Thing for Health Physicians on Call. And tonight, our featured doctor is Dr. Munish Chawla. He's a board-certified physician in diagnostic radiology and recently board-certified in lifestyle medicine. And I hear that was a journey to take.
Yes, wonderful.
He's Oh, great. He's passionate about living a holistic lifestyle, and he's here to share with us tonight on the topic of fruit, nature's candy. Love that. So, hi, Dr. Chawla.
Hi, Valen. Hi, Lisa. Hi, G. Good to meet everyone. Good to see everyone.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. We were just talking about the fact that there was snow that showed up in the Houston area today. And that just always sounds weird to me.
Right. It
No.
usually snows every 10 years, apparently.
Okay. Something like what happens here in Atlanta. It's
Hmm.
crazy. But thank you. Dr. Chawla, why don't you start off by telling our audience how you got into this whole food, plant-based world and just a little bit about your journey.
Okay, sure. Our journey started with, I guess, becoming vegan first. So that happened about almost 5 years ago. And we really didn't make any drastic changes in our diet. We were, eating pretty healthy. Or so we thought, even, prior to being vegan. And even after being vegan, we thought, oh, we're doing pretty well. But slowly we started learning more about whole foods, plant-based diet. And probably the culminating event was meeting Dr. Barnard. He came to an event in Houston and he gave a wonderful presentation. And he encouraged all the physicians that, you guys need to be, spreading this message. I mean, you have the knowledge, you have the authority, so it's good that you're bringing it into your own life, but you need to do, more to spread this to everyone. So that really inspired my wife and I, and slowly her practice is internal medicine. So she slowly started transitioning her practice from internal medicine to lifestyle medicine. And we started doing some of the changes at her home. And, we noticed that, we were feeling pretty good before, but we felt even better, eating less processed foods, eating less oil, you know, and I mean, we weren't doing animal products at this point anyway, but just, making that shift, just increasing fruits and vegetables really made a difference in our energy level. So I said, there is to something. And, once you kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit, you just kind of keep going and learning about all the wonderful research. And then I've read the China study, How Not to Die, End of Diabetes, a bunch of books by Dr. Bernard, Campbell, Furman. So I really got interested in the whole food plant-based aspect. And I, that kind of went from there. And then my wife wanted to take the lifestyle medicine boards. And I'm thinking, I'm reading the same stuff you're reading, I'll do it too. So we both studied for the board exam together, and it was wonderful. It was like having a study buddy. We'd quiz each other, and we'd go over, when we would go out for a walk, we would ask each other about this study or that study. It was, completely nerdy, but we had a lot of fun, and that's kind of how it started. And now, over the past year, I actually started a health and wellness club at my workplace. So in this club, we do a monthly plant-based potluck. And before I was doing sort of informally, if patients had, I shouldn't say patients, colleagues and other technologists who work with me at the hospital, if they had any questions, where do I get my protein, or, are carbs bad for you, or, those sort of questions, I would answer them at an informal level. But lately I've started doing like little 10-minute presentations. So I do like little PowerPoints. Actually, we had our plant-based potluck earlier today, and I did a 10-minute presentation on blue zones. So people, there were about 20, 22 people, and only 2 people knew about the blue zones. So the rest of them had no idea. They were all just, some are plant-based in the potluck, most are not. Most are inching their way and they show some interest and, come and talk to me. And they were all fascinated that these people are living such healthy, amazing lives. So, it went very well. And, that's kind of, now I'm totally in this. Any chance I get to promote a whole foods, plant-based diet, I'm there.
Fabulous. Well, we're going to be talking about fruit tonight, and something that you mentioned that really kind of pinged my attention was that there was a lot of misunderstanding around fruits
Yeah.
because people associate it with sweet. So tell us a little bit about what your thinking is there.
Okay. So, eating sweets as like, with processed sugar or, whether it's in candy or cookies or cake, that's very different than eating fruit, which is also sweet, because that's how nature intended it for you to receive it. And the reason it's different is not because, there's definitely more concentrated sugar in processed foods like cookies and cakes, but not just that. When the fruit comes pre-packaged in nature so wonderfully that when you eat an apple or a strawberry or any fruit that's considered fairly sweet, all the glucose, all the sugar in that fruit doesn't immediately rush into your bloodstream. It goes in very slowly. And the reason it goes in slowly is because the fiber and other plant compounds called polyphenols, they reduce the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream. So why is that important? The reason that's important is when you're eating processed sugar, cake, or candy, they rush into your bloodstream very quickly and your blood sugar goes up. So the body does not like things to go out of certain ranges. So when the blood sugar goes up, it produces a lot of insulin to help it bring it down. So that same response doesn't happen when you're eating fruits because the blood sugar goes down much more gently. So you don't get the sugar spike, you don't get the consequent insulin spike. Now, someone might ask, what's so bad about getting an insulin spike? Or, why is more insulin being produced a harmful thing? So a little bit of insulin is needed. It's needed to regulate our blood sugar, but more is very harmful. Insulin has been linked to, it's an anabolic hormone. It builds things. So it builds both normal cells, but also cancer cells. And we're forming cancer cells in our body at all times. So you can imagine if you have too much insulin, it's going to make those cancer cells grow also. So insulin is a big factor in raising your risk for cancer. And this is why diabetics have a much higher risk for cancer than the general public who's not diabetic. So all these things put together, and that's just, the harm, that's just one aspect of it. Fruit, in addition to having polyphenols, in addition to having fiber, have lots of micronutrients. And these are nutrients that keep you healthy, that keep your immune system balanced, reduce inflammation, get rid of free radicals, antioxidants, all these things that prevent chronic diseases. So, nothing in cookie or cake has any antioxidants or very little or any anti-inflammatory nutrients. The fruit, nature is just pre-packaged it just perfectly for us to eat. Sorry, that's a long answer.
That's a great answer. Nature pre-packages exactly what we need. I love it. So, question came in, can we help our diabetic friends whose doctors don't understand the real cause of diabetes? They believe they can't eat any sugar and should eat meat and dairy instead. What can we do?
Okay, first part is education. And, this is, like what Hippocrates Docs is doing, what so many people around the country are doing, is getting the word out that diabetes is something that's related to fat more than anything else, and animal protein plays a part, and processed foods play a part. So it's not, just sugar. There's more to the story than just that. So once you have diabetes, your ability to handle sugar of any sort, even in fruits, is compromised. So if you have insulin resistance and you have diabetes right now, at this point, they're not going to be able to handle fruit very well. But what we can do is address the root cause of diabetes, what caused diabetes in the first place. And I'm going to oversimplify it a little bit, but the largest part of what causes diabetes is saturated fats in our diet. So these saturated fats mess up the mechanism by which insulin escorts blood sugar into the cell. So with these excess of dietary fats, the whole mechanism of keeping your glucose normal is messed up. When that happens, anytime you eat anything that has any amount of sugar, your body is unable to deal with it. For a long time before you get diabetes, you get insulin resistance. So body just produces more and more insulin to keep the blood sugar normal. But at some point, that's not enough. So body's producing its maximum insulin, but the blood sugar is still too high. That's when the person has diabetes. So, but all hope is not lost. If we say, okay, if it's fat mostly, that's messing up with this mechanism by which insulin works to get the glucose into the cell, then that's where we need to work. And unfortunately, a large number of physicians are not really paying attention to the root cause. So once you address the root cause, which is excess of saturated fats, get the patient out of insulin resistance, and then definitely they can eat as much fruit, as much vegetables, anything sweet, the way nature packaged it. When it comes with nutrients, it comes with fiber and other compounds which allow the body to absorb it slowly, and the way it's designed to work, with the hormones and other things. And then people with diabetes, once their insulin resistance goes down, can definitely eat fruit. And they should eat fruit because they are, greens arguably are the healthiest thing for us to eat, but fruits are almost as important. I mean, when we make the recommendation to eat, 5 to 7, actually now it's 7 to 9 fruits and vegetables in a day. I mean, this is the healthiest things you can eat. So green, leafy green vegetables and cruciferous green vegetables like broccoli and bok choy, in the nutrition index, they may be a little bit higher, but fruits have certain nutrients that even these green vegetables don't have. So you need to eat a variety of fruits, variety of vegetables, both green and colored, and same thing with fruits, different colored fruits. So definitely diabetics, once they start eating this way, actually they can not only reverse their insulin resistance, in most cases they can reverse diabetes itself. And eating meat and dairy is not going to make things better. In fact, that's what caused the insulin resistance. That's what started the chain of events that led to diabetes.
Wow. That is amazing. I really appreciate that explanation because a lot of people don't really understand the root cause and how this process actually impacts and reverses the damage that you can do. When you know the cause, you know how to correct it. So next question for you. Can you eat too much fruit? Is it possible to overdo it?
It's definitely possible to overdo anything, but you can eat a lot of fruit. In fact, there are people who are on a raw food diet And some of the people on a raw food diet, they actually just eat raw fruits. And they've done this for 3 months, for 6 months, for fairly long times. And it's just amazing how versatile the body is, that whatever nutrients you give it, it can use it. And protein, fruits are not something, they're not high in protein. And you think these people are for 6 months just eating fruits, they're going to get protein deficient. But research shows they don't get protein deficient. But in general, for healthy eating practices, you want to eat things within reason. So, yes, you can eat a lot of fruit, but like anything else, if you're eating fruit, then you don't have the opportunity to eat other foods that are good for you. So if you're crowding out green vegetables, leafy greens, broccoli, bok choy, and just eating fruit, then there are crucial nutrients, anti-cancer compounds, and things that are better for your heart in those type of foods that may be a little bit less in fruits. So the lesson is to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, and whole grains, roots, anything, things as close to nature as possible.
Oh, that's a great explanation. And I think it really draws attention to having a balance between them, the fruits and the vegetables. Now, does cooking fruit reduce its healthful benefits?
It does, definitely. So, I mean, it depends on the different fruit, how much you cook it and how much the benefits are reduced. But in all fruits, when you cook them, you're reducing the water content. You're changing the way nature made that fruit. So when you're eating a bite of apple, it has water, it has fiber, it has phytonutrients, has phenols, all these wonderful compounds. Some of those compounds are denatured, so they're no longer effective when you cook them. Secondly, you're taking out a lot of the water that's in it. What that means is now you're concentrating the sugar, because if there's less water in, let's say, an ounce of apple, now there's more sugar proportionately. So again, you kind of run into the risk, with making something that's artificially more concentrated. And again, we want to keep things as close to nature as possible. Can you hear me okay, Violaine?
Yes, we've getting interference in here.
Oh,
So I didn't actually get the last part of what you were saying. Can you repeat that, please?
sure, sure. So I was saying that, when you take the water out of the fruit, you're making the sugar in the fruit proportionately a bigger proportion. So now before, let's say 10% of the fruit had sugar, it was, 70% water and, I'm just making up these numbers, and 20% fiber. So when you're cooking the fruit, you're getting rid of most of the water. And now sugar is a much higher percentage in that food before it was cooked. So again, you're running to the risk of, getting concentrated sugars into your bloodstream and having the risk of insulin spike. The other thing is, heat denatures a lot of the phytonutrients. So a lot of the healthful things that are in fruits, like polyphenols and other phytonutrients, they are no longer effective. So the benefits we would get from fruits, we don't get those benefits, or we get them much less.
Okay, Dr. Chawla. I've got a couple of questions too.
Sure.
Is eating vegetables enough to promote good health all by
Sure.
itself, or should we really try to focus on getting a proper proportion of fruits and vegetables? I get the vegetable and I get the fruit component too, but for some people who just don't quite understand, I mean, is just vegetables enough, or are we missing something if we don't have the fruit?
No, you're definitely missing something. And there are phytonutrients in fruits that are not present in vegetables. there are polyphenols, and these polyphenols not just help with getting the sugar slowly or helping with sugar absorption, doing it in a slow and deliberate way. They also have anti-inflammatory components. And one of the things, there's several fruits especially, that if you eat them, they are helpful in maintaining a healthy blood pressure. So eating vegetables alone is not enough. Everything in nature, whether it's fruits or vegetables or even whole grains and beans, everything is important because our body utilizes different things, and there's different minerals, different vitamins that come from, something is more in green vegetables, something is more in grapes, something is more in beans. So we need a variety of different foods. So if you run into just focusing, yeah, I've been told that vegetables are the healthiest things to eat, I'm just going to eat that. Well, I mean, that's good, that's healthy, but you're depriving yourself of all the other compounds, phytonutrients, and other useful things that our body needs, because not everything is going to be in one food group. So it's helpful to just eat a variety of foods, but keep it as close to nature as possible.
Gotcha.
Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. And I have some friends who just don't quite get it, that fruit is healthful, because as you said early on in the call, they're worried about the sugar levels. I'll just have to work a little bit harder in explaining it to them.
Yes.
A question that has come up to me from some friends is about dried fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Should we limit that a little bit because of its lack of water and the calorie density?
Yes, absolutely. So, in general, you want to eat fruits as close to nature as possible. At certain times of the year or at times when, let's say, food is not available, it's perfectly fine to do dried fruits. It counts as a serving. But that is, you hit the nail on the head. It's because the water is taken out, it's more calorie dense. The sugar in it's more concentrated. So it's not something you want to just pick off the shelf and just start eating. I use dried fruit when I make a salad. So when I'm, having a big salad, I'll throw in some raisins, some cranberries, some dried cherries, even some apricots. And that way, you've got salad, you've got walnuts, if you want to put some tofu or whatever. In that way, you're eating the dried fruit with other stuff. So that way your sugar doesn't shoot up real high because it's going to be more concentrated sugar. And it's, when you're sitting in front of the TV, you don't want to be eating a bag of potato chips because you'll finish the whole bag. And similarly, if you sit with a 6-8 ounce, bag of apricots, let's say, before you know it, you're going to eat that whole bag. And again, that's calorie dense, it's extra sugar that your body doesn't need. So, but when you're putting it in a salad, okay, I'm putting 3-4 apricots, a handful of raisins. You can portion it out much better. And it's exactly right. It's absolutely fine to eat it, but you want to limit the amount you eat.
Makes sense, definitely. Are there some fruits that are better for digestive issues? Would you recommend to some of your patients certain kinds of fruit for that?
People are very individual, and they kind of have a sense what fruits work for them and what fruits don't. And sometimes, they're spot on for whatever reason, whether it's different enzymatic reactions or just whatever they grew up in eating, they do better with it. But anybody who is, let's say, they need to get more vitamin A or beta carotene, and they say historically, we haven't been able to eat carrots. So there are other fruits that they can use. They can use mangoes, other things. But let's say we want this patient to eat carrots. But, in the past, they haven't been able to tolerate them very well. So unless they have a true food allergy, but let's say they, in the past, their digestion or whatever doesn't work for them, you can slowly introduce any fruit or vegetable in a small amount. And the body, is just amazing at adapting things if you do things slowly. if you give a small amount, but you give it on a regular interval, let's say they can't tolerate papaya, but if you give it a small amount, which doesn't cause them any issues, then you can slowly over time increase it. So for most times and for most patients, they can pretty much eat anything unless they have a true food allergy, true fruit allergy.
Well, how about should we consider the transit times, for instance, eating fruit at the end of a meal? I've heard some people say that they absolutely cannot have fruit at the end of a meal because the transit time of their regular vegetables or whatever, maybe they're even eating meat. I'm not quite sure that would be our case, but that is going to be the heavier portion, and then the fruit would be so much more easily digestible that might cause gas and bloating. Do you worry about that, or do you warn your patients that if that's a problem, they might want to have their fruit before the meal or just as a snack and not have it after a meal?
So if the patient has sort of these preconceptions, the important thing is to get lots of fruits and vegetables into your body. So if it's better for them to eat the fruit beforehand, that's perfectly fine. But I don't want to have that at the expense of not eating fruit.
Gotcha.
And this is, my wife and I, basically, it's become a habit or a ritual. After every dinner, we eat literally 6 or 8 different varieties of fruit. And this is so slowly grown over the years. Before she would do apples and pears and occasionally some grapes. Now we have apples, grapes, cherries, persimmons, plums, peaches, whatever's in the season. If there's less than 6 fruits at the end of the meal, my kids, who are teenagers, complain. They don't have enough fruit. And our younger one, when we started doing this, only fruit he ate was apple. He wouldn't eat anything else. And now he's like, where's my kiwi? So if you miss a fruit, he's complaining about it. So personally, we've not had any issues, but if a patient believes rightly or wrongly that fruit after dinner causes them issues, then you say, okay, don't, miss out on the fruit. Just eat it beforehand. Eat it as a snack, eat it before dinner, whatever works for you. But from a scientific perspective, I really can't think why that would be an issue. Because we have this amazing digestive machinery. We eat sort of like, think of a factory. We're basically putting in raw materials. And, from the raw materials, which is the food we eat, we get these exquisite enzymes, which have such amazing intricacy and geometry, which do such amazing things for our body. Our body is far more intelligent than our conscious mind. So, we just need to give it the right fuel. And, it may matter for a very small percentage what order you give it. But in generally, from a teleological perspective, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me that there needs to be a timing when you eat one thing or another. As long as you're not overeating, you're eating a variety of fruits, vegetables, and just different foods and whole grains. Really eat them in any order that feels good to you.
Good advice. I'll have to let my friends know. Some have asked me about that. So do you have some favorite fruits?
I used to love mangoes, but now, whatever's in season, that just tastes the best to me. Like, Bandana brought some really tasty persimmons. I think they're just fabulous. The next week, the plums might be really good. So before I did have a favorite, but now that we eat so many, it's like every other week I have a new favorite.
That's good. Do you have fruit trees? Do you grow some of your own fruit in your
We
yard?
do have some orange fruit trees. We have a pomegranate tree. We don't have a green thumb, so our harvest yield is pretty poor. But we did get a few pomegranates this year, and in the past we've gotten some oranges, but this year we didn't get any oranges.
Oh, I do have a green thumb, but not with fruit. Well, what advice would you give someone if they were just starting out, and they haven't been a big fan of fruit, or they've been scared of fruit because their doctors or family members or whomever might have misled them to think that they shouldn't eat fruit? So what would you tell people to start with, just for the sake of getting exposure to all the goodness of fruit?
Yeah, so, in general, have them start with fruits they're familiar with. And, everyone, even if they don't eat on a regular basis, is familiar with apples or bananas or, whatever part of the country or world they're from. If that's the fruit they're used to eating, start with that. And again, if you do things slowly, nature, our body adapts. So like today, let's say they probably wouldn't be able to handle 3 servings of fruit in a day because their intestines are not used to that much fiber. Or, they don't have the enzymes to necessarily process that fruit very well. So like anything else, just do it slowly. Have half a piece of fruit for the first week or two, and then increase it to 2. And, within a few months, you can eat as much fruit as you want. Our body is so readily adaptable that it can rev up the enzyme system and say, okay, I'm getting this fruit on a regular basis. I need to have this and this enzyme ready to deal with it. So, within several weeks, you can, if you're diligent, you can eat any fruit that you want, unless you have a true fruit allergy.
Are there some specific resources we could lead people to? I get it, and I know that your explanation makes perfect sense to me, and probably everyone on the call maybe understands this already. But for others out there who just can't quite grasp it, are there certain resources you would have us lead them to or share with them?
Sure. And anytime I have a question, there's usually something useful that you can find on nutritionfacts.org. So that's a great website. It has 90 seconds or sometimes a little bit longer videos. And it covers short topics, and it's for our generation, which has short attention span. So within 90 seconds or 2 minutes, the video's over, and everybody's able to pay attention to that. So that's a great resource. But there's many resources on the web that you can use. Hippocrates Docs has a wonderful website. Forks Over Knives website has wonderful resources, and they have all sorts of articles, on fruits, on vegetables, on whole grains. So there's lots of choices and lots of information. And even if just tell them, just Google benefits of oranges, and 10 sites will come up. They'll tell you about the benefits of oranges. But my favorites are nutritionfacts.org and Forks Over Knives. They have a lot of information.
I love those too. Those were great websites. I just love Dr. Greger. Well, okay, so in addition to fruit, knowing that that is a wonderful addition to our diet, when you're counseling someone, maybe at your office, what are some of the first things they ask you about, what they can expect when they're transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet? If you've got some people who come to your monthly meetings who aren't plant-based, what are some of the new things that you have to kind of expose them to for them to get started?
So one of the things that they think that, eating a different way is going to take away a lot of enjoyment. They enjoy the foods that they eat, and sometimes there's an emotional attachment, and they think eating a different way is going to be somehow, it's going to deprive them. And then, I said, okay, so, that's something that I understand that's a valid concern, but our physiology is such that we get adapted to eating any food that we want. There's so many different foods around the world, and foods that we think are not so appetizing, there are people eating them all the time because their taste buds are used to them. So one is just, the taste buds get used to whatever you eat. And I asked them, do I look deprived? I'm like always happy and smiling. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, people think when they're eating sort of comfort foods, high-fat foods, high-calorie foods, that makes them feel good. But over time, especially if you read the work of Dr. Doug Lisle, those dopamine, all those pleasurable sensations you get from dopamine when you eat a calorie-rich or sugar-rich food, they slowly decline. So your enjoyment level for those foods declines over time. And then you need to eat more and more sugar, more and more calorie dense. And you get sort of caught in a pleasure trap. And when you're in that pleasure trap, when you eat a whole food plant-based diet, that's not going to produce much dopamine at all. But if you kind of persevere, stick with it, over time, that mechanism normalizes. So, when you're used to eating these high fatty foods, initially when you eat a big salad, it won't be a pleasurable experience. But when you kind of readapt your body, within just 2 months, maybe a little longer, that dopamine reward system readjusts. So when you eat a fresh fruit, when you eat orange or apple, you get the same dopamine response, you get the same high, those pleasurable sensations. So it's just kind of getting people to believe that the transition is rough. There's no denying it because, our body's been hijacked by these I call them super rich, artificially enhanced food-like products. I mean, this is not what we grew up, in our evolutionary history, eating cookies or ice cream. These were just not part of our normal diet. But, they've hijacked our taste buds, they've hijacked our dopamine reward system. But if you can persevere to the transition, all these natural fruits will taste much better to you. So I was telling Whelan, sorry, I'm kind of, I tend to ramble on, but we had a plant-based potluck today, and we had some leftover brownies, which we bought for my son's volleyball tournament thing, so I took them there. So, I mean, these brownies are from Whole Foods, they're vegan, but I ate them, they're too sweet for me. I would much rather eat an apple than that brownie. And the folks at the plant-based potluck that we had earlier today just couldn't believe that. I said, it wasn't the case a year ago. I would have much rather have the brownie. But once your taste buds, your reward systems kind of get back in line, then the fruit that's available in nature, that's what we've been eating for hundreds of thousands of years, that tastes good, and that gives you pleasure, and there's no deprivation of any sort.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. And I feel the same way about salt.
Yeah.
Things are just crazy salty now that I've adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned even from being at True North that celery and chard are two of nature's biggest sources of a salty flavor. And it's crazy how after you adjust, too salty is actually very unappealing.
Yeah.
I understand that about the sweets too. So in addition to the resources from nutritionfacts.org and Forks Over Knives, and I saw even on our Saturday email, some of your favorite resources, you would recommend maybe that people spend some time educating themselves. The books you said you chose to start with, like the China Study and maybe How Not to Die. What should we tell our friends when they're first getting started? Would those be the things that you would recommend to them?
Sure, absolutely. If they like to read, then How Not to Die and the China Study, they are written at, I would say, college level at most. You don't need any sort of health background to read those books. And even high school level, I think would be able to read those. So most everyone would be able to understand, especially How Not to Die. It's just written in such a simple way, and there's a lot of knowledge there, but it's written for a lay audience. So that's a perfect resource. People who like to watch videos, they can go to nutritionfacts.org. There's wonderful documentaries, Forks Over Knives, Eating You Alive, What the Health, that give a great introduction on what eating plant-based way, can, really kind of open up someone's eyes. And, if they're looking for websites, I guess I should mention our website too. So they can also go to Embee Plant Physicians. And we have a video on fruit, as do Hippocrates docs as well. So, but if they like to read, there's plenty of books that are available. Let's see, Dr. Furman, he is another person that is very easy to read and makes a very convincing argument. If someone has, like, say, heart disease, so for him, I would recommend Dr. Furman's book, End of Heart Disease, or Dr. Esselstyn's book, How to Reverse Heart Disease. And if there are, more diabetes issues, then Dr. Barnard's books. He's got several books on diabetes. So, there's just any specific, if you just want just general overview, Dr. Barnard has a lot of books. And like we mentioned, Dr. Greger's How Not to Die is very comprehensive.
So when you and the Mrs. Dr. Chawla, also Dr. Chawla, transitioned, what was the thing that was most amazing to you that you just didn't have any idea about? Being physicians, both of you, all these years, and not having been plant-based before, there must have been some eye-opening things that happened to you.
Right. So when we went from, I was not vegetarian, but Bandana is a lifelong vegetarian. But, I ate very little animal products, other than, I would say, yogurt and occasional seafood. So it was pretty low. So when we went from that to a vegan diet, we did not notice any real difference in the way we felt, energy level, mood, or anything. I think in a way we were eating more processed vegan food. So, it didn't really have much effect. But as we got introduced to a whole foods plant-based diet, then we could definitely tell a difference. Then our energy level was better, our mood was better, and we just felt better, waking up in the morning just with more zest. And, once you kind of feel better, it's like, okay, what's different? Well, the difference is we're not eating processed foods, we're not eating oils, we're limiting our sugar. Actually, we don't eat hardly any sugar. But we still eat, I think, more salt than we probably need to. But that we're trying to cut down even more. But, going from a sort of a typical vegan diet, which these days means there's lots of cookies, lots of cakes, even vegan donuts, and going to a whole food plant-based diet, that's where the real magic is. From a health perspective, there's no comparison. You're going to feel a lot better. And, once you kind of notice these changes within you, then you want to kind of spread the word. And, Vandana has her practice, or Dr. Chawla has her practice, and she's able to do that with her patients. But at my hospital, I've got my colleagues, so any chance I get, I'm kind of bending their ear, and, other physicians and other technologists. So that's what any chance I get, they'll know that I'm not going to be shy. I'll let them know how I feel about plants.
That's great. Are they changing? Are you making some good headway with the other physicians?
With the physicians, not so much. They are very reluctant, but the technologists within the radiology department, which I'm working with, most of these people hadn't even heard what a whole food plant-based diet even is. And there are several people who they say, Dr. Chawla, I've given up meat altogether. I'm just eating fish and chicken on occasion. Others are saying I'm stopped all dairy. Others are saying if they say, Dr. Chawla, I had 4 different types of fruits yesterday. So they know that I want to hear this, and they're happy to share this. Or they'll say, I lost 10 pounds, in the last month, really without even trying. Instead of eating chicken that I usually eat for lunch, I just replaced it with salad. That's all I did. So, I'm getting a lot more converts within my radiology department, less so with other physicians.
Well, hey, we'll take them anywhere we can get them, right?
Yeah.
So any more parting words of wisdom? I guess we're coming up on an hour. Lynn, I'm not sure if you've got some more questions for Dr. Chawla too, or Peter. It may be you and me with the questions right now. But if you have some more insight for our listeners on, ways to make the transition easy or how to incorporate new and different foods when they're making the change, we appreciate every piece of advice you have.
Sure. So in general, make changes slowly. I mean, for some people, they can make pretty drastic changes and stick with them and just go on about their business. But for most of us, change is a little difficult. So make the change that you can sustain and do it slowly, learn about it, really learn the material, become aware of the benefits, and that way you're much more likely to stick with it. In terms of, making the transition, there are several kickstarts that you can do if you really want to give this diet a fair trial. PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, they have a 21-day kickstart, which kind of shows you what you need to eat or what you can eat, and also has very helpful recipes to kind of get you on your way. But, do it at a pace that's comfortable for you, get support. Anything we do, it always helps to have support. If a buddy, or a husband or spouse or friend or sister can do it with you, that makes it so much easier. And even let's say your spouse is not really wanting to do this at this point, even then involve them in the decision, let them know that this is something I want to try out, something I've heard about, and I want your support. You don't need to do this with me, but I would like your support. And that support might mean that if you want to eat cookies and donuts, feel free to do it at the office or on the way home. Just don't bring that bag into the home. So a lot of the, especially when we're first starting, people want to do this everything by willpower, and that just doesn't work very well. So you need to work 90% on your environment and 10% on willpower. So if in your home, when you're making this transition, you don't want to eat cakes or cookies, don't bring them into the house. Then, when you're hungry, there's just a banana, well, that's all you have available. So get the support of people around you. If they want to continue to eat, they want to eat, but just tell them, do me a favor, don't bring those cookies into the home. And, at some point when you're kind of slowly going in, you need to kind of clean out your pantry, clean out your freezer, just redo everything and make it plant-based. I mean, there's no set time when someone does this, but the sooner you do that, the easier it's going to be in the long run to kind of stick with this type of lifestyle.
Right. Any advice for the people whose partners absolutely won't support them?
That would be, I guess, outside my realm. There would be someone, even if I would think, even if a spouse doesn't want to do this lifestyle, doesn't see the value, I would hope that they would feel like, if my spouse wants to try this, then I should be as supportive as possible. So, I mean, I guess if they're not supportive, then there might be other issues that they need to work on.
Well, you've been full of a lot of great advice, Dr. Chawla. Lynn, do you also have some more questions for him?
I don't have any more questions, but I would like to say thank you because this was awesome. I learned so much, and I think that you covered so many good things about fruit and other things, including how to bring your family into the picture and your spouse and a significant other supporting you. So thank you for all of that, Dr. Chawla. That was amazing.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for having this wonderful forum so we can, spread the plant-based message. So thank you.
You're welcome. And anything we can do to further this mission, we are open to doing. And at this point, I don't know that we've gotten any questions from those in our audience. G typically shows up and hangs out with us, and no questions from him today. But we want to thank you for coming out and sharing your time with us this evening. We truly appreciate it. And Lisa, thank you. Your questions were awesome. And the information that was shared in response to them, I learned an inordinate amount of great information. So to our audience, thank you for hanging out and joining us this evening, whether you're here with us live or joining us on video. Be sure to check in on the website, justonethingforhealth.com, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where all these amazing videos are going to be housed in. We're going to have an open library there, and we're also going to have more for you to see and resources for you to get to from the website. So check us out. Go to week 11 to hear this video or Dr. Chawla's challenge video, and join us again next week. Every week we will have something new and exciting for you, and we're just so grateful to be able to be part of the movement that is making a difference in the world through the whole food plant-based diet and lifestyle. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We will see you next week with a new and exciting topic. So keep an eye out for your email.
Thanks, Velan. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to see you both. Yeah.
Same here.
All
Bye.
right. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.